I have to say that certainly in Israel, and I'm sure everywhere, today is not a simple day. I think that the there was an image in the Jerusalem Post. I don't know if they actually published it like this or if it was just an image, but it had the Jerusalem Post headline and it had the date and then nothing else printed on the paper.
That was the paper
And
itself.
what, Rabbi?
That was the paper itself. That's the way it
It
came.
was paper. Okay. And then today, we took the women from Midrashet Rachel to a memorial event that was put on by World Mizrahi. And Rabbi Mervis, who is I don't want to say his title wrong, but he's I think the rabbi for World Mizrahi, and he has been, as they said, accompanying Rabbi Peres throughout his trials and ordeals since the beginning. And he started his talk also with this discussion of Ein Milim, that there just are no words. The thing is that it's true, but he encouraged all of the women there to work really hard to find the words. So even though Ein Milim, there are no words, we do need to try to find the words. And I think all of you would agree that when it comes to helping us find the words, there are no better people to look up to than our own treasured Rabbi and Rebbetzin Shurin. So it happened to be that October 7th this year coincided with the yahrzeit of alumnus, our treasured alumnus, Stu Shni, his grandmother, Dora Bleeman, Aleh Shalom, Dora J. Bleeman, Aleh Shalom. He'll tell us about the J. And traditionally, Stu and his family have sponsored a shir in her memory, and it's become one of the highlights on the Chappelle's and Midrashet Rachel alumni special events calendar each year. So this year we had to try to figure out what to do because we couldn't just have a shir given the intensity of today's date. So hopefully tonight, coming together as a community, I guess it's tonight in Israel, but for those of you in other places, it's throughout the day, having this time together as a community of more or less like-minded people that care about similar things. It really does bring me great joy, and actually it's puts a smile on my face in a very difficult day to see all of you and to know how much we all love the Shurins and are grateful to them. So thank you, Rabbi and Rebbetzin, and thank you to the Shni family for encouraging and for helping to plan this evening. And with that, I'd like to ask Stu to just share a few words about his beloved grandmother, which is how we're all here tonight. And
Hi,
you'll
everybody.
when you want me to put up the photo.
Oh, yeah, sure. You could. Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, everybody, thanks for coming. And it used to be when there were these wars in Israel, especially in the world of social media, you could always tell the difference between those of us in Israel and those abroad. Like there was just like this break between the realities. People were doing like a different life outside of Israel. And I felt like this war, this tragedy that started on October 7th was really different because I felt like everybody, Jews everywhere around the world, were united in this. And I still feel that way. And today has been a pretty heavy day here in Israel just because, the mainstream media is covering it nonstop, radio, wherever you are, you hear it, see it. And then, of course, just to get the blood going, we had a a ballistic missile come in from Yemen a few hours ago. So, and some shrapnel fell here in Beit Shemesh. So that always kind of gets your blood going, and it's a good way to remember what's going on. My grandmother was born in 1907 in New York. Her parents immigrated to immigrated to the United States, really with nothing, like most Jews who came there, and they did pretty well. My great grandfather helped found a shul in East New York, which is pretty much where Rabbi Shurin's father was a rabbi, I think. And
Correct.
they they did a lot for their kids' education. My grandmother had a Hebrew tutor and a Yiddish tutor. They all spoke Yiddish, but not everybody knew how to read and write it, and so she was taught that. And Am Yisrael was super important to her. I always felt like with her, I'm with sort of Jewish royalty, and she had a list of the tzedakahs that she gave to. I always say things about her each year, but we'll cut to the chase. Um, we found the list, and I asked her. She showed me the list once when she was still alive, and she said I keep track because I'm old, so they call me a lot of times and they think I forgot. And a lot of these places I don't want to give more than once a year, but a lot of them she did give more than once a year, and she gave to a lot of good Jewish causes. And a very striking thing about her, besides the fact that she got a college education at NYU back when I guess Jews were still welcome there, and that's very unheard of for women in the early 1920s. But she did it, and this lady could never speak lashon hara. She just couldn't, except against the enemies of Israel. So I heard her tell some good Polish jokes, and she told things about Arafat, you know. But besides that, she really couldn't speak badly about anyone. So as usual, my family's so grateful to Rabbi Shurin. And this year, like as Donna said, we felt like it should be a little bit different. And so we're really grateful that Esther agreed to be part of this. And I'll leave it to them to take it away.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you
so
very much.
Rabbi, just let me do a little bit of procedural
Sure.
information. So our goal is to have about 35, let's say, minutes of a shear with the Shurins, and then we did get some pretty great questions from some of you that we will spend some time on at the end. So I would say hold your questions in the meantime. If something comes up that you would like to ask, please send me a PM in the chat and I will add it to the list of questions that we'll get to at the end. And the other thing is just that I know that if people want to stay on, we're here, but we also recognize that people have limited amount of time. So if you need to jump off the call, no one's going to be offended. And that's how we'll do it. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Yes, it was a difficult day, and it is a difficult day in Israel, and we're not just sort of remembering because we're still in the middle. So I have a feeling that we're going to have to reanalyze this in many moons from now, once again. But so it's like, first we had October 7th and didn't turn out to be a pogrom. It turned out to be a war, and we're in that war till today. And as Stu pointed out, even today there are still rockets, some of them coming in from Gaza, from other places as well.
This one was from Yemen.
So certainly in Israel, we were, I would say, mourning, commemorating today. The events that took place on that day were tragic. I mean, I've been down there, actually fought not to go down there, but at a certain point, someone convinced me to go down there. I don't know if it was good for me or not, but
definitely opens your eyes.
Yeah, it definitely opens your eyes to witness what went on there. Looking at all the cars that are piled up today and how they were burnt up, and the Nova Festival, and seeing all the pictures of the people who lost their lives.
All young.
Yeah, young.
Nice looking kids.
Yeah, really
terrible.
special. Like young kids trying to find themselves, going to a festival, thinking that they were certainly thinking about world peace when they were there. There's no question about it. And this is what they got instead. So certainly it is a time for mourning. But I just want to say that when we raise the question of how do you commemorate an event that it's similar in a certain sense. Everybody in Israel, I mean, the prime minister said that we haven't had an event like this in one day of so many people getting killed, citizens getting killed, not also army, but even citizens getting killed since the Holocaust. So it is a very different type of loss than just the typical, which I hate to use the word typical, terrorist, a day of terrorism, which we've been having pretty regularly, unfortunately, with a young policewoman getting killed yesterday. But this was something that was like major. So how do you really want to commemorate it? Now, I want to share with you something that, I mean, this year was a little bit harder for me. Every year I force myself to go to Har Herzl on Yom HaZikaron. I feel it's Magia, the soldiers, that we visit their graves. That type of Hakaras Hatov we certainly need to have. But when I go there, and this year was a bit harder because maybe even more than a bit, because there was so many more new graves that had been dug, and so many more soldiers that have been, put to rest on our Herzl, that it was particularly hard, especially when you start reading, how long ago they were killed, and it could be like a month. How old were they? It could be 1920. And furthermore, it can be a name that you heard about, that sometimes you know the family, sometimes you just know the name. Sometimes he's an Oleh Hadash. He was a
Lone soldiers.
a lone soldier, so it's that much harder than when you just go see, somebody that you don't know. But I always sit and I always think about, when I'm sitting at the graves of these different people, I always think about, like, what would you want me to do, when I visit grave? What would you want me to take away from this? Right? I'm going to visit your grave, but I want you to talk to me and tell me, like, what would you want me to do? And I begin to think about what that person would answer, and that person fought for the state of Israel. Some of them fought for the state of Israel right after the Holocaust. In other words, they got out of the Holocaust, they came, you look at the grave, it says on it, he came to Israel like, he was 27 years old, he survived the Holocaust, he came to Israel, and he was killed during the Milchemet HaShichror, during the War of Independence. What would that person want, right? I think that the correct answer, certainly for me, but I think in general the correct answer is, they fought basically so we can live here in peace, tranquility, and happiness. That's why they fought. So we would have a state like every other country, and that we could live here finally peacefully. And it really hasn't come. But if they could speak, I think they would say, listen, I wanted to finish the job, but I couldn't. Okay? I couldn't finish the job. I was killed. So you have to finish the job. Because if you finish the job, it was worth dying. Okay? It was worth dying for the state of Israel if we finish the job. But if we don't finish the job, I question whether it's worth dying for the state of Israel.
I think I want to just add in here that the Bibi said a number of times that the soldiers that he met with all told him, don't stop. We're not here fighting and risking our lives so that you can let this one go and let it be another, failed, what do they call it, operation. We want you to finish the job. So it isn't actually...
Actually, they said to Bibi, right?
Yeah.
We want to finish the job. Don't stop us. Okay? And that's, I come back to our soldiers who are basically the politicians in Israel are not my heroes, even if they're good speakers. They're not my heroes, unfortunately. Okay, I wish we would have politicians that could be our heroes, right? Right, but Israel has never, the Jewish people in general, but it's in the Tanakh. Okay, it's in Sefer Shoftim. Sefer Shoftim became Sefer Shoftim for one simple reason, because the Jews didn't finish the job. Right, they got into Israel, they had the wars, but they didn't finish, and that's the first chapters in Shoftim. And this tribe didn't conquer this city, and this tribe didn't conquer these 3 cities, and this tribe, right? And now we're going to have to live with it, okay? And I think our soldiers really want to make sure we don't have to live with it anymore, right? I think 1967, when I was a teenager, really spoke to me when again, what happened was over there was, I mean, we're here today, and our Arab problem today here is because of 1967, but not like because people think we're ruling over them, because they're here. Okay, I was alive and well in 1967. I'm not going to go into politics here, but the Arabs should not have been here after 1967. Okay, we actually, in some cases, called them back. Okay, just like Moshe Dayan gave the keys to the Harabayit back to whoever it was,
That's
okay. The point over here is
historical errors of magnitude we can't even imagine.
Right, and that's what we're paying for since that time. Okay, that's Kufas HaShoftim, and that's what we're really paying for. Now, the soldiers, since this war began, right, but before the war began, let's take the day of October 7th. Okay, that terrible, terrible, tragic day. The people of Israel that I found out about, well, it was on Yom Tif, but I found out in the evening or the next day and the next weeks, right? Who we have here living in Israel, these are not heroes, they're superheroes, okay? These are people, when they heard about what was going on, they didn't even know what was going on, but they heard that the Jews were in trouble down south. They got into their cars, right? Many of them from, right? Many of them not from. They got into their cars and they went down. Some of them went down with a handgun. That was the biggest joke you could have, going down here with a handgun, okay? With thousands of terrorists with machine guns, okay? One guy went down with a handgun, but he also took his knife along, okay? These guys didn't ask questions. These men and women did not ask questions. They got into their cars, they drove, and they fought off terrorists until many of them were killed. Okay.
I have to say, there is a man by the name of Oz Davidian. If anyone was following what's Abbas rate, Channel 14 today, it was like ongoing stories of Gevura, of these heroes. We actually met Oz Davidian when we were down south. Very humble and unassuming person. And they're interviewing him. And I knew before we met him, it was an alum who introduced us to him. I knew that he saved over 100 people. And when he was being interviewed, they asked him, how many people did you save? He said, I only saved 120. It was like I can't even think about it without crying. I only saved 120. And you can see that he's about to cry.
Yeah, he's about to cry. He's holding back
that
his
he
tears.
couldn't save. And the reporter is like, you're amazing. You're a hero. You were risking your life every minute. You saved 120 worlds. I mean, we should be proud of that. And he's like choking back his like sorrow about the ones he didn't.
And then he listed off 10 other heroes, people that he knows with names that got into their cars to save Jews for no other reason, right? And they went, many of them went to their deaths trying to save Jewish people and saving Jewish people, right? There are literally hundreds of these people, maybe even thousands, but there's certainly hundreds of these people that are superheroes that went down there. And the first thing you would think they were going to think of was like, what am I, crazy? I'm going down there. I'm going into into the pool of hell, basically, over there, but no, they didn't think. They just went to save Jews. We have such special people here in Israel. I'm just in awe of them. I'm really in awe of them. And then when, the next day when the war really began, maybe even a few days after that, right? And the story started coming out of the people that saved other people. By the way, Oz still is in touch with the 120 kids.
They have a group chat.
They have a group chat, and he calls them my children. He has his own children, but he calls them my children. Okay, and we're in touch all the time, he said. In other words, and he said, because we all are related. We're all Jews. We're all related. That is the attitude that I see here that's just unbelievable. If someone said to me, why should I make Aliyah? I would say, speak to Oz. He'll let you know why. Okay? But then, you're ready to see these young kids, right, going into action, right? Not even that well prepared. I hate to say it. They weren't even that well prepared, according to some generals, right? Going into action, going into Gaza, into the hotbed of terrorism, and just wanting to save the Jewish people, just wanting to, make sure that there's never going to be a Nova again. There's never going to be a attack like there was in the South ever again, right? And you would normally think, what is a youth today? I hate to say it, but many of us who have teenagers, we know, generally the youths are like on the self-centered side. They only think about themselves, right? All they want to do is really, they want to party, and and then the ones in universities, all they want to do is be morons, right? That's all they want to do, right? Because that's what they are. I mean,
the unbelievable chutzpah, the amount of money that they pay for those universities, which none of these kids are paying by themselves. It's their parents, it's the government, whoever is paying for them, and then they turn around and they espouse all kinds of evil causes, because they're in these stupid universities. It's like, instead of becoming smarter, you become stupider. It's quite an amazing situation.
Right. So, I mean, there's no one of us that couldn't be shocked. I was certainly shocked, seeing protests on campuses after what happened in Nova, to see protests on campuses who were saying basically that it was good that it happened, right? I mean, you can't really make this up. It's so crazy, okay? It's it stems from anti-Semitism, but it went over to this crazy side. What the Chazal say, the hate, mekalkelet ashura, right? The hate destroys logic. The haters, but even the people who weren't haters, who were just told about it, know nothing. That's why I say they're morons. They know nothing about. They never even heard about Hamas till someone got onto the campus and told them that these guys are heroes or something.
Useful idiots.
They're simply uneducated.
Uneducated.
Uneducated. I'm talking about Columbia University, Yale. Uneducated. Could you imagine using that word on the Yale campus? You're uneducated, right? But so I would have expected the kids in Israel to be something like that. It is so different. The secular kids, the religious kids, the Dati, the Haredi, the Dati Leumi, all the kids that are in the army, I am in awe of them. They are there to fight. Like Esther said, they told Bibi Netanyahu, don't stop us. We want to finish the job, finally. We want to make sure we don't have to go into Gaza anymore, okay? This is the last time, not the next time, right? And I have a strong feeling that if we could speak to the people of the Nova massacre and the massacres of those kibbutzim, if we could talk to them and say, okay, what do you want now? They would say, we don't want you to mourn for us. We want you to finish what needs to be done. Whether we knew it needed to be done or not knew it to be, we know now it needs to be done. Okay? and we want you to do it because we can't. Okay, this is something that we see our soldiers are so conscious of, loving the state of Israel, loving their country, loving the Jewish people, loving the Jewish nation. It doesn't matter if you're religious, not religious, right? They have this love for the Jewish people that it's amazing. I don't even know where they got it from. I Pashut don't know. I don't believe they were taught it in school. It's maybe in the mother's milk. I don't know, to tell you the truth. But these became my superheroes. I want to tell you, if I wasn't embarrassed when I see a soldier, I would hug him. I'm just too embarrassed. I'll tell you, at the beginning of the war, like a month into the war, I got off a bus at the entrance of Yerushalayim. Okay, and I got to the bus. I wanted to walk to Rehov Givat Shaul, for those who know what I mean. I got off the bus on Rehov on the main highway, and I wanted to walk to Rehov Givat Shaul to get another bus. And I see a religious woman, Dati Lumi woman, hugging her chayal. In other words, her husband, who was a officer, and obviously she was hugging him because he's going into the army. He was going back. It was the first months of the war. And I'll never forget, my feeling is, I wanted to go over. I said, can I give him a hug too? I was just embarrassed to do it. But I wanted to say to her, can I also give him a hug? You know, these guys they love us. They love every Jew. It doesn't matter what kind of Jew it is, if he's old, if he's young, if he's poor, if he's rich, if he's religious or secular. And this is something that's heroic. It's heroic, Pashut. They're superheroes, these guys. And the stories that they tell. A guy gets injured, and under fire they remove a guy who's injured. There's so many stories that haven't been told yet, because they only tell stories about, unfortunately, the people who die in action or died in October 7th. But there's going to be tons more stories about the valiant soldiers that go into the heat of the war and are not afraid to fight. They're really, we see it on YouTube every now and then. You see like a soldier, doing slichas in the middle, and he's got his gun pointed outside, right? So that's number one.
Can I
Number
just
two-
interject a quick thought? I think everybody is really excited to hear from you, Rebbetzin. So when you do speak, can you just try to project into the mic? I had about 4 or 5, 6 people ask, because I really want to hear you. Okay. Okay.
1 second.
Okay.
You can hear me, but you can't hear Esther.
We can hear you great. Just Esther's a little harder to hear.
Okay.
Okay.
I just
Sorry.
want to say that he's talking about the soldiers being heroes. They made song, right, about how each person, like, I'm not going to sing it for you, obviously, but it's called Anachnu Am Shel Giborei Al. We are a nation of superheroes. So if you want to Google it, it's fantastic. I think they have translated into English.
Right. In other words, it has
they're
English
saying,
subtitles. It's unbelievable.
The secretary from the school, she's like a sniper, and it's really super special. And he's saying every single one of these people is a superhero. Gibor Al is the.
It's like
Hebrew
all of a
expression.
sudden that the guy.
How we could never have expected. And I think that I just want to address something that we spoke at the beginning of the war, how the terrible pilug, the terrible divisions that there were in the country before the war, and how that was sort of a catalyst for our enemies thinking that now is a good time to get them, because we can mess them up because they're divided. And when we were attacked, it's unbelievable how the Achdus came out, and there are still people trying to divide us, but that is like a minority. And all those people, there are heroes. There's a woman called Iris Chaim, terrible tragedy, that her son was one of the hostages, and he and 2 other people escaped, and then they were killed by friendly fire. And this woman, who is like really one of my heroines, one of the most amazing human beings that come out of these things, and all of a sudden, who knew who she was? And she says she spoke to the soldiers who never, were the ones who made this mistake, and she said, I don't blame you, and we're all in this together, and we'll have to be united. And where does that come from? And I think that a lot of it comes from that Pintel Yid, the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Jewish people are all one. The Am Yisrael Chai, the songs that have come out, right? The spirit here it's truly awe-inspiring. The ordinary people who just stepped up, and so many people are trying to shout down the naysayers and not to let the divisions, take off anywhere. We just don't want that to be part of our nation anymore.
Right.
And
I mean,
it's
Esther's
quite
right.
amazing.
The best place to see Achdus, Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, is in those army soldiers. That's why I say we're not. I don't like the politicians; they create the problems. But our army soldiers solve the problems in many ways, not just in one way, but in many ways. That you look at secular soldiers fighting between amongst secular, amongst frum soldiers, amongst Haredi soldiers, amongst not Dilumi soldiers, every type of soldier fighting in one unit, each one caring about the other person. The way Klal Yisrael is supposed to look, you just have to look at the army. You have to look at the typical soldiers in the army. I don't even want to look at the generals, just at the typical soldiers.
I have to tell you a story. I believe this was Rabbi Manning's son, but forgive me if I'm misquoting. But there was definitely a rabbi in the army who one of the soldiers came over to him, and this is the Hitorut, the awakening of the Jewish neshama that's so extraordinary. That's part of this whole, Achdus Am Yisrael Chai situation. So he was the rabbi, and his soldiers were secular, and one of them came over to him and said, "You're the only one here with tefillin. I want to put on tefillin. I have to put on tefillin." So he said to him, "Listen, you don't have to put on tefillin today. It's Shabbat." So the guy said, "I don't care. I want to put on tefillin. I need to put on tefillin."
He said, "Ani lo dati.
I'm not religious.
I'm not religious. You're religious, so you can't put on tefillin Shabbat. I'm not religious. I want to put on tefillin."
It's
right?
Extraordinary how that, the ignorance, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They want to connect, the whole tzitzis revolution at the beginning. There are so many videos going around of groups of soldiers getting ready to fight, singing slichot. I could send you, I have dozens of them. Like they're singing slichot, they're blowing the shofar, they're saying tefillot, they're davening together. And half of them have kippot and half of them don't.
Right.
And it's this, could be that they don't have kippot and they're still religious, but they are respectful. They are, and one of the things that I saw also in terms of the religious revival was that many of the people who survived, let's say the Nova, they tell their stories that they resolved to keep Shabbos, and they're saying Shema Yisrael, and they felt that they survived because of these kabbalot they took at those terrible moments, and they, there's videos of these people who became religious afterwards. So there's this Jewish thing, like we have so much to be proud of, when the Jews are, thinking the right way and trying to get together with each other and closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu. There's like nothing that we can't do.
I hate to say it, but a lot of times tragedy brings out the best in the Jewish people. I hate to say it. The Holocaust brought out the Jewish people saying we have to have a country of our own, no matter what, right? That's what the Holocaust brought out. I mean, people are fighting for the state of Israel before, but no one ever fought like the people after the Holocaust, especially the people who went through the Holocaust. People who witnessed, who were part of October 7th, and even the ones who weren't part of October 7th, right? The amount that these soldiers, what they saw when they went down south and going into Gaza, they went in differently because of October 7th. It's unfortunate that it has to happen sometimes, and we'll talk more about it in a moment, because there has to be a message here. In other words, why October 7th happened, right? We have time to go into that at a different point. In other words, part of the why that question, you have to answer that question is the government has to answer that question. The army has to answer that question. The Shin Bet has to answer that question, right? Why it happened. I don't have to ask the question. I don't have to ask the question to God, why did it happen? First thing I want to do, I'm not so frum, I want to ask the government, why did it happen, right? Why were you sleeping, right? But I'm not going to go into that now. The message we have to take is not so much of a why, but really of what we have to, the message, what has to be the message. And there's a few messages we have to take over here. One message is that clearly when the enemy says they're out to kill you, they really mean it. It's not just written in our, what do they call
The charter.
their charter, right? In their charter. It's not just written in their charter for, for goodwill or something. They really mean it. I remember as a colonel, my father's a colonel Rabbi used to say, the biggest miracle of Purim was that Mordechai believed Haman. Because Jews tend to not believe when the anti-Semite says, I want to kill you. No, you don't really want to kill me. You're just angry at me. No. I want to kill you, right? And if the Jews had believed Hitler, we might be looking a little bit different today, right? But so many Jews said, nah, it's just, another pogrom. It's going to happen. It's going to pass. Gamzeh Yavar, right? So the problem is sometimes is that we don't take our enemy serious. And I think October 7th was a wake-up call by God. You got to take the haters of the Jewish people. And again, it's not the haters of the Zionists. That's baloney, because there were plenty of people down there that were not necessarily Zionists. There were some that weren't even Jewish. Okay. And there are plenty of, when we take a look at these campuses, it has nothing to do with the Zionists. Maybe that's the what do you call it? The excuse or the trigger. But I have students who are in my school on summer, who were in Rosh Hashanah in summer, who told me that I wasn't attacked because I was attacked because I was Jewish. So we have to get this clear that it has nothing to do with the Zionists. That's just the trigger or the excuse, like Esther said. That's number one. Number two, Mordechai in Shushan Habira, when he got the king on his side, he waited for the day of the 14th to 15th, and they went out and they killed people. They didn't wait for the people to try to kill them. They killed out all the anti-Semites, right? When an anti-Semite threatens us, we don't have to wait till he actually proves it. We have to do it when he says it. We have to believe him, right? And if Iran is saying we want to destroy Israel, for me, that's enough. I don't know if it's enough for the American government or the British government or the French government. I don't know if that's enough for them. But for me, it's enough, because we've had the experience when someone says they were going to kill you, don't wait till they actually try it.
As I'll say.
Right.
Somebody who comes to try to kill you,
you wake up early and get him.
Early and you kill him first.
Right. Now, there's another thing we have to see from over here, how resilient our nation is as people, as soldiers, right? As every type of, we're so resilient. We managed, okay, it took a long time, but we managed to really knock out Hamas, not completely yet, but we're working on it. And we managed to turn the tables in Lebanon like no other. Okay. We're tremendously resilient when we're down and out. We know how to get up, and again, no matter how much you knock us down, we get up and we go one step further because of it, right? We really are able to change the whole chessboard in one felt swoop. And that's extremely important, that we realize how resilient we are. And we're great people. We're a great nation, a wonderful nation.
I want to add something here that I think is very important. We have seen an incredible number of miracles. And we are resilient because we are HaKadosh Baruch Hu's people. We have the Emunah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be there for us. But I think that together with the terrible traumas, the tragedies, the horrors that we saw, I think that, if you make a list of the miracles that we experienced, it's sort of mind-boggling. There are crazy things that have gone on. Let's just start with the Iranian attacks. What are the odds? What are the odds that when they send 200 rockets at Israel, what are the odds that people are not going to be hurt? Like it's mind-boggling. And that the defense systems all work together. This is not a given. This is not perfect science. And also, we had one man who was killed by a rocket. He was walking around Yericho. He was a terrorist that came into Israel illegally from Gaza, and he was walking around Yericho without a care in the world. And the one straight missile hit was on his head. I just feel like, if you are aware and you're awake and you're looking around, you see HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there for us. He's not, this is definitely not an airtight situation. We have many, many terrible things that are going on. But even in the midst of the terrible things, there are so many miracles. There are so many things that if it had been this way or that way, there is this survivor of the Nova, and the Pigua, the attack that happened a few days ago in Tel Aviv, in Yafo. He was there with a gun. This man was wounded in Nova, and he pulls out his gun and he neutralizes the terrorists. And this is a great miracle. What if he hadn't been there? And how many other people would have died there? So every single day we're seeing miracles, and if we can focus on that, we can, give ourselves koach, because it has been a very, tough road. So I think a lot of that, watching those miracles, gives you the resilience that you're talking about. It gives you the understanding that, we are God's people, and Sachakol, He is really there for us. And, when we see the success, and don't forget, when you see the beeper attack and the walkie-talkie things and, killing Nasrallah, yes, absolutely genius military work, absolutely genius intelligence work. I'm going to give those companies and officers and whoever is involved with that tremendous amount of credit. But Sachakol, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu hadn't wanted that to succeed, it would not have succeeded. We've seen many failed attempts. So we have to be very, very grateful and very conscious of those, the special hashgacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us. And that's, I think one of the things that are, somewhat turning the tide here in a general sense is like that feeling that, yes, now we are actually on the offensive. We are finally on the offensive. And, we're feeling that backing, not just from the army and the Shabak and whoever, but also from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He helped us take out all these evil people. And Bezrat Hashem, Utsu Eitza B'Sufar, right? Dabu Davar V'Lo Takum, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Himanu Keil. That's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
I hear. Look, so we have number one, we have the fact that we have to take the anti-Semites seriously, and we have to actually do something about it. Number two, as Esther pointed out, we're a special nation, we're a resilient nation because we have God backing us. Number three, we don't want to be made victims anymore. We're tired of being made victims, right? That's why we bounce back. If we had not gone into Gaza, maybe we would have had some sympathy, because the world likes victims, and they like Jews when they're victims. They don't like
wrote
Jews.
A book called "The World Loves Dead Jews." It's
Jews.
not true.
Yeah,
they don't love any Jews.
Yeah, but dead ones they love more than live ones. That's for sure. And that's something that we need to know that we're not going to be victims. We're not going to allow the world to build another museum for Nova. Now that they built 10 museums for the Holocaust, right? They love to do that for us. Only when we die, we get them to build like great, memorials for us. We're not going to be doing that anymore. This is a very important limud that we have from over here. When an enemy tries to kill us, we have to really go in there and make sure that he's not going to be able to do that again. Furthermore, Esther Jungreis used to say, I didn't survive the Holocaust. I triumphed over the Holocaust. We're not just going to survive Nova. We're going to triumph over Nova. Like I said before, the soldiers want us to win the war. And we have to also want us to win the war. There's no such thing as a ceasefire. America wants us to do a ceasefire. Britain wants us to do a ceasefire. Everybody has their own agenda. America likes us. I'm not saying they don't like the Jewish people. The government likes us, but they like themselves more. Okay? And whatever works for them, they're going to tell us what to do. And we have to do what works for us. And for us, a ceasefire doesn't work. Okay? America is a country that doesn't like to get involved. Okay, they didn't get involved in World War II until Pearl Harbor. Right? Don't bother us. The Jews dying, but don't bother us because we know Jews are dying, and Roosevelt knew Jews were dying, and maybe he was anti-Semite. Well, he wasn't anti-Semite. It doesn't matter. The point was that no one's going to take care of us except us. Okay, so when we feel we need to do something, we should do it. And if we need to knock out their atomic weapons and their oil wells, we have to do it, right? We don't have to worry. That's where bitachon comes in. We have to have bitachon that we're saving the Jewish people, because this is a war it's not a war. It is a war to show the Arabs that we can overcome our greatest enemies. That's number 3. Number 4, that's number 4, that is. Number 5, we mentioned that anti-Semitism has once again reared its ugly head. And we have to know that I myself, growing up in New York City and in America, would never have believed this would happen, what we see happening in America. Never would have believed it. Never really encountered any anti-Semitism growing up. And therefore, we have to realize that this is something that is eternal. It's going to always be this way. It just sometimes takes a certain trigger, or after a certain amount of years after the Holocaust, it was like you weren't allowed to be an anti-Semite. It was not in style. But the Holocaust has been a while, and therefore now people could then. So whether it's the world or college campuses, we have to not get too shocked about it, because this is something that the Jewish people live with. And as long as the anti-Semites can't hurt us, we don't have to worry. But the minute they can, then we have to take them out. Okay? The reason why we have to finish this war is because, number one, we lost our deterrence. Because the Arabs are not allowed to think, the Arab Muslims are not allowed to think that we can destroy the Jewish people. Okay? That's what they thought in Nova. Okay? By the way, I have to tell you that America also had a wake-up call. 9/11 was a wake-up call, right? Unfortunately, right, we don't realize certain things until terrible things happen, right? America knew that the Islamic world, this extreme Islamic world, which is plenty of people, right, called America, Israel, the small Satan, America, the big Satan. Everybody knew that. Okay, that wasn't new, but you don't do anything until actually the terrorist actually attacks you, right? So there was a wake-up call in America, but instead, usually you have to do these, you have to wake up without an alarm clock. That's the best way to wake up. But sometimes you need an alarm clock. That's 9/11. That's, so many times in Israel we've had that already, those alarm clocks, right? But even after you get an alarm clock, you're not allowed to put it on snooze. You got to get out of bed. America after 9/11 went back to snooze. They put it on snooze, right? So what are they waiting for? The next attack? Are they waiting? We don't know. I mean, obviously, a nuclear weapon can't destroy America, right? But it can destroy New York City.
God forbid.
God forbid, right? So what are we waiting for, right? That's extremely important that we realize that, Israel is not, and this is a very important idea, Israel is not just fighting for itself. People may think it's fighting for itself, but just like when the nuclear reactor was taken out of Afghanistan, right? Iraq, when it was taken out of Iraq, right? Under Saddam, right? Everybody screamed at Begin, "What are you, nuts?" Both in Israel, they screamed at him. And in America, they went nuts that he did it. They were very, very happy, right? When Iraq attacked, and they didn't have nuclear weapons. They were extremely happy about it. Okay, so we have to, sometimes the world goes to sleep. Israel's not allowed to go to sleep because, as Golda Meir said, we can't afford to even lose one war, right? So that's why we're not allowed to go to sleep. That's very important to see. What was the message of Nova? The message of Nova is we'd like to destroy all of you if we can. So we have to make sure that the terrorists can't. And in order to do that, we have to win big. We can't certainly can't have a ceasefire, but we can't just do, we mostly got rid of Hamas. We mostly got rid of Hezbollah. I don't remember when a painter came to your house to paint. Do you remember when he left 2 rooms unpainted and he said to you, "I mostly painted your house, so now pay me," right? Is that what happened? The painter, if he'd say that to you, "I mostly painted your house. You have 7 rooms, I did 5. I mostly painted your house," right? So it's okay, now you can pay me. No, you got to finish, right? And that's what we have to do here. We mostly, we turn the tables on Hezbollah. Mostly is not enough. We have to get them, as Arabs have told me, right? Arabs have spoken and said, you have to get the Arabs to beg to stop, right? There has to be such destruction that you have to get them to beg to stop. Please stop the war. You have to completely put the fear, we call it the fear of the Jews, fear of God, in the enemy. They have to be afraid of us. Okay, that's what'll bring peace, when they see that we are so great and so awesome that we have to forget about destroying the Jews. It just can't be done. Whether they'll say Allah is not letting or they can't do it, that's what it has to be. In order to bring back the deterrent, we have to make sure they get down on their knees and they beg. One Arab who was interviewed, the son of Hamas, was interviewed. He said, until they lose a place where to tie up their donkey, that you haven't beat them. Meaning, you have to take their land away. There's no such thing as an Arab making a war and there's no consequences. Because if the consequences are we kill their people, they don't really care about that. There's plenty of Arab countries. Okay, they don't really care about that. Nobody cares about that.
I'll tell you a little bit of a story in this vein. Okay, many years ago, when we first came to Israel, it was 1977, and we were robbed. We were just married a couple of months, and we called the police and everything else. And I was this little naive New Yorker, and I was sure that it could not have been a Jew that robbed me. It was too, how could it be a Jew that robbed us, right? So I said to the policeman, it was probably an Arab who robbed us. And he looked at me, and I think he really felt sorry for, my naivete,
Esther, a little louder.
He said to me, I will never forget this. He said, Aravi lo ya'iz likanes l'shchuna yehudit balayla. An Arab wouldn't dare to come to a Jewish neighborhood at night. And now I'm like, okay, at the time I was like horrified. I'm still horrified at the thought that a Jew robs another Jew, but okay, leave it on the side. When you think of that policeman's certainty that the Arabs were too scared in 1977, too scared to enter a Jewish neighborhood at night. And we just like gave them away parts of the country, bit after bit. So, we have to sort of turn the tables. I just want to add something else. My brother-in-law, Dove, made a song, Zachreini Na. Okay, I'm sure you've heard it in some iteration or another. When that song first came out, people were horrified. What do you mean? Because basically it's saying, God, remember me and give me, nakama, give me vengeance. And you know what? What do you mean vengeance? Is so not PC to talk about vengeance. And today, and it's interesting because every time I see a clip of this, I send it to Dove. You should have nachas. That song it came in the second intifada in 2000. I heard the soldiers singing this song on their way to put down the rebellions in Yosh, right, in Jenin and in all these places. And that song gives strength because it's saying that Kodesh Baruch Hu asking you to give us vengeance. There is such a thing. And I have followed this theme in the Tanakh, right? We just had Hazinu, Harninu Goyim Amo, Kidam Abadam Yikom. We say Hashem Yikom Damam. God should avenge their blood. It's not an evil concept to say that. We have been terribly attacked. We have been put into shame and disgrace. And my husband mentioned before, I think he did, that David HaMelech, when he went out to fight Goliath, it was because he couldn't understand. They're saying, if a person kills Goliath, then he'll marry the king's daughter, he'll get lots of money. And he's like, I don't understand. This is the Malvin's interpretation, right? Yasir Cherpam, we have been disgraced. We have been shamed. We have been put down. How dare these people treat us like that? Where is our self-respect? We're taking it back now. We have to have that as a nation. Where it's lost that and we can't allow them to do that. And if you look at the Ava Rachamim, there's so many, right? Machatz, where's it going?
Machatz Roshal there.
Machatz Roshal there, right? All the Haftorahs where like Hashem is coming like a warrior from Edom. It's time to say that no more PC. We have been shamed and disgraced and hurt, and we really need to finish the job. And that's not just for our honor and our self-respect, but also for Kadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's arguing with Hashem, he says, Hashem, what will be with your great name? When we are put into the ground, when we are put down, then that is a chil Hashem. That is a disgrace to God's name. God's name has to also be raised here. And we're doing that by taking back our pride, by taking back our self-respect. And we cannot do that when we sit around passively, waiting for I don't know what kind of deals and stuff. And unfortunately, so many of the people that were killed down south were people who were living this delusion that if we just make nice, we'll have peace. Well, let's just make nice. And they brought in these people into their homes and they gave them toys and food and stuff to help them. And they mapped out their homes and they gave it to the terrorists. A terrible, terrible, the ingratitude and the cynicism of it is appalling. How could that be? So we must not be merciful to these cruel people. That's a very big mistake. And the Chazal say that's going to end up in cruel people being, attacking the merciful. That's how it's going to end. So we have to really understand that October 7th, for whatever else it did, it changed that paradigm. I think many, many people who were really thinking that there's a way to make peace, all of a sudden they said, you know what? They don't want peace. Okay? We just have to face the fact they don't want peace. They want us all dead. They don't care what we look like. They don't care where we came from. They don't care if we're religious or not. They want us all dead. It's a horrific thing to realize, but it has to be realized. And until we all internalize that, you can't go forward in this, horrific, war that we're in.
I'll tell you, I just want to end by just saying that, really the day of memory is really Simchas Torah. And of course, a lot of people don't want to do it on Simchas Torah because they don't want Simchas Torah to be a sad day, right? They want it to be a happy day, even though, again, the way I view this day is a day that's giving us a certain strength that we didn't know we have. Okay? That's what this day, that's the message of this day for me. Of course, the terrible things happen, and so many people were killed, men, women, children, elderly, young people. So many women were raped, and so many, were massacred, right? There's no question about that. But we need to take those messages because it happened, right? Because we need to take the messages that this cannot be allowed to happen again. And the Arab terrorists have to be made to pay. And of course, as everybody knows, the terrorists behind all the terrorists is Iran. They have to be made to pay. And that's the only way, when they're all afraid of us and when they're all begging us to stop, that is going to bring peace to this part of the world, because the only thing they understand is, and I'm not saying this because I know it, I'm saying because other Arabs have said it, right? The only time you could bring peace with the Arabs is fear. They have to be afraid. And after 67, they were afraid until we allowed them not to be afraid. And that's what we have to make sure now. We have to change that. The conceptia, as we say, has to be very different. It has to be one. And therefore, for me, Simchas Torah is going to be an elated day. I'm going to try it shouldn't be affected, because the Simchas Torah tells us how special we are. I mentioned so many special things about the Jews. Simchas Torah, more than any other chag for me, what made us special is not the land of Israel, interestingly enough. What made us special is the Torah, right? And fulfilling the Torah in the land of Israel. But the Torah is what makes us special. And therefore, everything we spoke about today comes from an ideology of what we call Torah, Achdus of Klal Yisrael, right? That's what Simchas Torah is going to be about. And for me, it's going to be an extremely happy day, because that is what makes us Ashreinu, Ma Tov Chelkeinu, Mana Im Goraleinu, Ma Yafa Yerushaseinu. That's what Simchas Torah is about. How beautiful, right? Ma Tov Chelkeinu. We have a certain chelik. We're all different. And by the way, all these rumors about what our soldiers did, they shot 3 babies in the head. It's all lies, okay? I don't care if it's an American doctor that said it. He's not a yichus to me, okay? These are all lies. Jewish soldiers, I was a Jewish soldier. They don't kill babies. The Hamas kills their own babies, especially if it'll make the Jews look bad. Certainly they'll do that. No question about it. They won't think twice. We have seen Hamas killing their own people, right? We haven't yet seen Jews, chas v'sholom, killing their own people, but Hamas we saw, right? Or one 15-year-old says that she was raped. This is all lies. These are all lies. It doesn't happen in Tzahal, such a thing, right? So we have to know we're a special army, we're a special people, and Simchas Torah is what should really bring that to the top for us, right? And that's the way we should celebrate Simchas Torah. Thank you very much. Question?
Thank you very much. Yes. So I have wonderful questions that I have received both before tonight and then throughout tonight's event. I actually think that that some of the questions were actually answered throughout the course of the talk, and some of those have to do with the way that today we should be relating to our Arab neighbors and so forth. So I will save those ones to the end. Again, I just want to remind everyone, this is a fascinating conversation, and I encourage you to stay on, because there's some really hard questions. I don't know that I would envy being in Rabbi Shurin and Rebbetzin Shurin's seats tonight as we go through the questions. But of course, if you have to jump off, we understand. I just want to point out that I put in the chat a link to a WhatsApp community for Chappelle's and Midrashet Rachel alumni. If you click on that link or you copy and paste it or however you get to it in your WhatsApp, it will take you to a community that then allows you to choose a group that is based on location. So, there's a group for Jerusalem and Southern California and Chicago and so on. You can put yourself into the appropriate group for yourself. If you don't see a group in your community and you think that there's a need for one, let me know and I'll create it. But in general, I will try to post things in the general announcement. So as long as you sign up for the community, you should see most things. It's not a noisy group. It's not really a discussion group. It's more just a better way for me to be able to send you things and not have them get lost in your emails. Okay, now let's get down to business. So, trying to think where to start. I think I'm going to start with a really hard question. There's two really hard general subject areas, okay? One has to do with questions in Emunah, and I think I'll save that for number 2. And I think what I'd like to start with is a very, very difficult sugya in our people's experience, especially for those of us that are living in Israel. And instead of trying to summarize the questions, there were several and they were very well written. And I'd like to just read through all of the questions that relate to this topic, and then we'll wait for you to respond. So the first one, let me just start. 1 second. Okay. So one of the wonderful people on this call wrote to me and said, I'm having a very hard time with my Haredi friends here in Israel. 2 of my local friends have lost sons in the war. Several are injured. Nearly every building in my neighborhood has at least one son or husband serving. Some have several away from home for months. Meanwhile, my Haredi friends seem untouched. How can I love and respect them? I feel such animosity towards the Haredi leadership, and I don't want to feel that way. Okay, that's number 1. And on the same lines, there's two more, okay? After my son has been fighting in Gaza for the better part of the last year, how can I be expected to relate to my friends whose sons have been in the comfortable Beit Midrash, or even more difficult, to those whose sons have left the Beit Midrash to pursue professional and financial opportunities and have skipped over national service of any sort? At the beginning of the war, I firmly believed that every person would contribute according to his ability and position. But now, a year later, I can't understand how an entire section of Am Yisrael can see themselves as exempt from contributing to protecting the nation. Of course, I know that the learning of Torah is what ultimately protects us, and I wouldn't want for a minute to take anybody out of the yeshiva world, but are they actually learning with the same intensity and sense of responsibility for the safety of the whole nation? And then lastly, in this section, as you were speaking, Rabbi Shurin, so passionately and so lovingly about our soldiers, somebody private messaged me and asked, are our Gedolim sharing your enthusiasm about the soldiers as superheroes? And where can we find those words?
Okay, so maybe we'll start at the end. You're asking about the Gedolei Torah. Look, unfortunately, I'm already an older person, and therefore my Gedolei Torah are no longer alive. I can tell you that Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Chrono Levracha, I wasn't close with Reb Chaim, but I knew about him. He was a world-renowned Torah scholar and the head of the Mir Yeshiva. But I could definitely tell you that his love and respect for the soldiers was. I actually told you I was embarrassed to hug a soldier. He would ask permission and he would give the soldier a hug. Actually, he was not embarrassed. So again, I would point, if we're talking to Gedolei Torah, I would guess, again, you probably know better than me, Donna, but Rav Osher Weiss, who's one of the great poskim today, he's a little bit on the younger side. He's like just turned 70, I think, but he's a very, very world-renowned posek today. And I think that he would agree with what I said about the soldiers, right? Because it's hard to disagree with it when you see it. It's just you actually see it, okay? You see them sitting with each other. You see them fighting with each other. You know, it's something that it's not deniable. It's not like they that we're making this up, right? So if the yeshivas are not stressing, and for me again, that's one of the reasons why they're my heroes, because of their achdus, right? If the yeshivas are not stressing the greatness of our soldiers, right? I believe there's an agenda there, unfortunately. I think the agenda is they don't want to stress too much how great the soldiers are, right? Even though they are protecting the country, right? They don't want to say that because or don't talk about it. They may not talk about it because they feel that, oh, there's achdus in the army, but there's no achdus sometimes in the yeshiva, right? So it doesn't look very good. So it's but it should be stressed, and it should be stressed that just like the achdus you see in the army, you should see in the yeshiva. And the yeshiva world has to get over the fact that not everybody is in yeshiva, and they have to get over the fact that not everybody's Haredi, and every Jew has what to contribute in this country, whether they're religious or secular. They have what to contribute. I'm not telling anybody that it's okay to be secular. I'm just saying that they have what to contribute, and we have to respect them and have a karsa tov for the amount of fighting that these secular Jews are doing for us, right? They don't have a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. I mean, they do, but they don't know it, okay? They don't view themselves as having a mitzvah to live here, but yet they're fighting like as if they're fighting for a very holy country, okay?
I add something. I think it was Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. That somebody told him that he's going up north to daven at the Kivrei Tzadikim. Can you hear me? Somebody asked Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He said he's going up to daven in the north by Kivrei Tzadikim, and I believe it was with Shlomo Zalman. He said, "Why don't you just go to Har Herzl? Everybody buried there is a kadosh." And I want to add to something. Somebody made a comment to me about the kids at the Nova, and the people who were killed, and some of them weren't religious, and this. And I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that everyone who died at the hands of these terrorists is a kadosh. They died al Kiddush Hashem. They died because they were Jewish. They are holy souls, and I don't care. You want to call names and make distinctions, and I think it's a terrible thing. You have to Markin Roche, if I'm losing my English, you have to bow your head and have a karas hatov for the people who were out there and risking their lives, the people who got killed because they were Jews. That's al Kiddush Hashem. And
again, I want to say that I'm not a chas v'shalom. I'm not saying people shouldn't be learning. You also need the learning. I'm not. I've never come to the conclusion. And ultimately, I think it's a shutvis. It's Yisachar and Zvulun. You have people going to the army fighting, and you have people who are sitting in yeshivas. But I will say the following thing, and I said it to a yeshiva guy, and I'll say it here publicly. Okay. I said to a yeshiva guy, I said, I want to know, there were this week, it was a number of months ago when the soldiers entered a booby-trapped house and 8 of them were killed. Okay, lo aleinu. And I said, I want to know if that week, okay, you saw that you weren't doing your job properly. Were you thinking through, maybe I wasn't learning enough, and therefore they got killed? Because I know the army was thinking through, what did we do wrong here? So were you thinking through that if soldiers get killed, right, we're not doing our job? Do you ever think that? And the guy just looked at me blank. That is a problem, okay? And I know Gedolei Torah weren't like that. Rav Gustman, I remember Gustman Zichrono Livracha was from the Gedolei Torah Yerushalayim, a chavrusa of Chaim Shmulevitz, okay? I remember him getting up in the yeshiva in the Shalom HaGalil war and saying, the soldiers are now sleeping with their boots on. Don't take your shoes off at night when you go into bed. He said to the yeshiva guys, keep your shoes on. Okay? That is no sibom chavero. The yeshiva world cannot just simply, if you're going to be learning, you better make sure it really works. Right? You can't, any guy who's sitting there and using learning as an excuse or getting a degree and not going to the army, right? It's not an excuse. You're getting your degree. That means you're not learning in yeshiva. You got to go to the army. Okay? And there are plenty of, I'll just say what my grandfather told me when I told him about me going to the army. And I want to just say clearly, no one should make a mistake. Rabbi Yaakov was not a Zionist. I'm trying to hold back that he was an anti-Zionist, but I'm trying to keep that to myself. But he was definitely not a Zionist, okay? And I said to him, Zaidi, right? I may be able to get out of the army by getting a letter from a kollel. So he said, that's a lie. You're not allowed to lie. So I said, if it's a lie, and I can't do that, so I have to go to the army. So he says, so you have to go to the army. You have to go. But then he added something that floored me. He said, listen, what are you in the army for? To guard the country, correct? You have a better chance of staying alive than a secular soldier because you keep mitzvos. That's what he said to me. Okay? So I want the yeshiva guys to take that to heart. Okay? I spoke to a yeshiva student who's learning in a very well-known yeshiva. Okay? A good student. And during the 3 weeks, right? During the 3 weeks that they were off after Tisha B'Av, right? I said to him, you better not be going to the Kinneret because there's going to be soldiers who are off and they're going to see you at the Kinneret and they're going to say that yeshiva guys are sitting at the Kinneret having a good time while we're in Aza. I said, but furthermore, you have 3 weeks off. Why don't you go down south to help them rebuild the yeshuvim? Because they're looking for volunteers. His immediate reaction to me was, Zelo matim b'shvil ben yeshiva. Oh, zelo matim? Ma ken matim b'shvil ben yeshiva? What's matim? I said, there's no girls there. I checked, right? Go down there and volunteer and get another 100 yeshiva guys to start rebuilding yeshuvim. You're off. This is the way you spend your vacation, right? And he heard it, by the way. Whether he went down south, I don't know, but he heard it, okay? I think it's very important that yeshiva guys learn. It's extremely important, but they have to learn. And when they're not learning, they have to do, okay? They can't, this is not an excuse. Learning's not an excuse. It has to be real or not real, okay? And if they'll really be learning, I believe that we'll have much less losses. If they're real, and if that we have a lot of losses, it means that they're not learning. By me, it's partial. Okay, that's the way I see it. Okay, so if the guy is really truly learning, and that's why I think the parents, your question, Donna, what the parents should be saying to their kids is, you should be in yeshiva. Don't go to sleep at night because the soldiers are not sleeping at night. You sit and learn. You better learn much more than you've been learning. Right? That's what the parents have to be telling them. Right? It has to be as serious as the army. And then I'm okay with it. I'm very okay with it. And I think we'll take less losses. That's where my emunah comes in. Okay? It's not allowed to be an excuse.
Okay, Rabbi, thank you. That was really helpful. And if anybody has follow-up questions, please don't. Tonight and always, you can always reach out to me via email or WhatsApp, and I know how to reach Rabbi Shurin. I know how to reach the Rebbetzin, and I'm happy to pass your questions along.
They have my number also, by the way.
They do, but we take it very seriously, and we'll try to help as much as we can. Okay, I hate to do this to both of you, but the next, I would say, section of questions that came in, and there were many of them, unfortunately, have to do with Emunah. And I probably don't have to read through them, but I will give some examples. How do we say that Hakol Tova? When just this week, a mother buried her son after buried her son who was killed fighting in Lebanon after she buried her husband when he was killed, I think 4 years ago in a terrorist attack, Harav Ettinger. And what about we're excited about the witnessing these open miracles, and at the same time we're experiencing like the searing pain in our hearts. And how do we trust Hashem? How do we stay with this belief that somehow this is Hakol Tova and part of his plan? And one person also, and I relate, brought up, why the rape of women? Like, how do we see that Hashem would allow something like that to happen? So really, there's no answer to this, but I think it's on everybody's mind. Couldn't the good come from some other way without so much pain?
Look, in a sense, it's an old question. I have my certain approach to it, which is extremely, I wouldn't call it revolutionary, but certainly not very well accepted. But this is the way I've lived my life. I managed to get to 70 years, Lein Hara, with it. Whenever I can't, whenever I don't have to blame God, I don't blame God. Okay. Why women got raped and why people were killed and people were massacred, right? If the question is how God stands there and allows that to happen, right? Well, he allowed the Holocaust to happen, which was many more and much more gruesome than anything we could imagine, okay? Not that this wasn't gruesome, it certainly was. But so again, Rav Soloveitchik could have said, you can't ask why because you're not going to get an answer. But one thing I do know, okay, it's very hard to blame God when you have the government sleeping and when you don't answer God's messages that he sends to you. He sends an alarm and you put it on snooze. He sends another alarm. He puts it on snooze. He says, so I have to send an alarm that's not going to get put on snooze, right? That alarm was on October 7th. And now all of a sudden we're blaming God, okay? So let's stop blaming God. Let's stop blaming the terrorists, right, for this. Again, whether we see open miracles by me, we see miracles, but not open miracles, because the minute you have Jews dying, that's not an open miracle anymore, right? So I see miracles, but I don't see open miracles. Not open miracles miracles that are not open can be reinterpreted if someone wants. I choose not to reinterpret them. But when Jews are dying at the same time Jews are being saved, there could be like a miracle. There's no problem. I have no problem in saying someone was miraculously saved because of X, Y, and Z. And there's plenty of those stories, but they're not open miracles because there are plenty of people who are dying in this war, and plenty of people who died in this terrible event of October 7th, terrible massacre. But again, if God is warning us and we don't take the warning, then we can't stop blaming God. We can't do that. If you go out for a bus 10 minutes after it was supposed to arrive, you can't blame God. Okay? So we have to first do what we have to do. And if that doesn't work, then we can blame God. Then I can say to you, I don't understand God. But so far, I'm not willing to say that because it's not that I understand God, but I'm not going to say I don't understand God because I hate to use these words, but we brought it on ourselves by our attitudes towards the Arabs, towards the terrorists, right? They were building tunnels for years, and we were ignoring it. They were building in the north. They were coming down and going over the Litani River, and we were ignoring it, right? And now it comes back to haunt us, and now we turn to God and start blaming God. And God said, listen, I sent you a lot of signals, right? You had, you got a lot of missiles before October 7th, right? What did you do about those missiles? You got a lot of them. You did very little about them, okay? So now you can have, now all of a sudden we decided to flatten Gaza. Okay, we didn't actually flatten it yet. That my wish didn't come true, but it's close, right? We decided to flatten Gaza. I need to lose 1,200 people, so the army will flatten Gaza. If I lose one Jew, the army will not flatten Gaza. Why? 1,200 people are better than one person. If we would flatten Gaza after one Jew, Jews wouldn't be killed anymore. I guarantee you. If blood wasn't cheap by us, right? If Ariel Sharon didn't say during the Second Intifada, if there's a mega pagua, I'm going to go into Jenin and Kalkilia. I remember him saying it, a mega pagua. And if there's a regular pagua, you won't, right? That's our fault. That's not God's fault. I'm sorry.
I want to say something here. Not sure that I first of all,
You have to speak up.
First of all, it's all very well to blame the government, but I think these questions are coming from a place of intense pain. I think that people hear the stories and find out, and we all know people who were killed, and we all know young, wonderful, beautiful people, families destroyed, communities destroyed, and with all due respect to say that the whole, we brought it on ourselves. I personally don't feel that I brought it on myself. We know what we thought all along, and when you live in a country, you're stuck with the government that you're stuck with, so they have a lot to answer for it. That doesn't really answer the pain of this question. I feel the question is coming from intense pain, and I get it. And I feel like in a certain way, this generation has been, what's the word, protected. The Holocaust seems such a long time ago, and many of you, it's like 3 or 4 generations ago. My mother lost her mother in Auschwitz. Okay, so it was very personal for us growing up. It wasn't a thought that, oh yeah, like 80 years ago, there was this terrible thing. So in a certain sense, a person who's a little bit older we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of terrible terrorist attacks. We went through the Second Intifada, which was unspeakable things that went on. And, and the next generation comes along and says, how can this be? How can this be? So first of all, there's the famous saying, and I really don't want to misquote, but the question is not lama. The question is lema. We have no way of knowing why Hashem does anything. And I think it's really, really important. This is where Bedrock Emunah comes in. You can't stand on the side and say, I would have done it differently. Because you're not Hashem. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the broad sweep of the world. You don't have that power. So you can stand on the side and say, this is terrible. This is unfair, right? This is not right. And you were right, because it isn't right and it isn't fair. And the tragedies that we've seen are mind-boggling, horrific. Things that, I just sat the whole day listening to news and crying. It's awful. But then the next question is, what do I do with this? And any person who has been through any kind of loss or any kind of pain of any kind, they have to come to this place of saying, what do I do with this? So there are a number of ways of dealing with this kind of sorrow and pain. Some of people get depressed. Some people do terrible things, right? Some people react that way. But really what we should be doing is saying, how do I personally, what can I do to make sure this never happens again? And how can I help the people who are suffering? So there are many things that you can do. There are people who need to be helped. There are tzedakahs that need to be given to. We have the opportunity to daven for people. Personally, I feel like the koach of tefillah is so important. Here in Givatz Ev, I hear planes literally every 15 minutes. And every time I hear a plane go by, it's very high. It's not like Far Rockaway when the jets would go over the head. It's very high. And I know those planes are going to the war. And every time I hear a plane go over, I say to Tehillim Kochav Aleph, that Hashem should watch over your going and your coming. And I pray all the time. I have my own son-in-law now in the north. You have to daven and you have to have faith, because this is all for a greater purpose, which we don't understand and will never understand. But everybody can do something. Everybody can take away lessons and tovanot. And we are now in a Seret Meit Shuva. Shuva Tefillah Tzedakah. This is what it is, guys. This is the time that we can change the Gezerah. We say Abinu Malkeinu, Hashem, you're our king, but you're also our father. Have Rachmanis on us. Where are the tefillot? Where is it's really, like my husband says, it's really kind of, let's blame God. No, let's look at ourselves and see, what can I do? How can I do something to make me feel like I'm participating? If you're davening, if you're giving tzedakah, if you're helping the neighbor whose husband is away, whatever it is that you're doing, that's what you can do. And if you live in Chutz La'aretz, then Ojoter, I've seen people come here and volunteer and do amazing things. You can do that. You can daven. You can be part of the klal. So there are things you can do. So don't ever ask, Lama, why? We don't know why. The question is, what do we do now?
Okay, I just want to add to that, because I just want anyone to suspect that I don't believe in Emunah. I just believe in Ishtadlis. I actually do believe in Emunah, but I believe in Emunah in a very different way. I believe that if you have Emunah, you take chances because you have Emunah, right? In other words, if you have to attack and you have to destroy Gaza, you have to destroy Hezbollah, you have to destroy Iran. So the Emunah comes in. Why didn't we attack Iran yet? Why didn't we yet attack Iran? Oh, you mean you think that the government thought it's not a good thing? Of course they thought it's a good thing. They're scared. Why? Because they have no Emunah, right? Emunah comes in after you do your Ishtadlis. That's when Emunah comes in. But you have to do your Ishtadlis. You can't go to sleep. You have to do your Ishtadlis. That is the way the world works, right? So I definitely believe in Emunah. I say, I can't ask questions like Esther said of why, right? And certainly you have to be noseh ba'ol in the people who lost children, who lost parents, who lost friends, who lost relatives. You certainly have to be noseh ba'ol and feel their pain. But that's not a contradiction to say, and I heard a lot of people today on the news say, I don't trust the government. I lived through this in the South, and I don't trust the government. They have every right to feel that way, okay? And that has to be cleared up 100%. Again, the government is not allowed to fall asleep, whether it's, and most of the time it's gaiva, I hate to say it, it's haughtiness that, they can't possibly attack us, right? There's a haughtiness, there's what's it called? Koach v'otzim yadi, right? And every now and then, God gives you a little, not a big patch here, and says, it's not called, you have to do your ishtadlis. You fell asleep, and now you caused this, and there has to be din v'cheshbon. Not only in Shemayim, here in Israel, has to be din v'cheshbon on these people. But you're not allowed to be scared. I want to give you a perfect example before we end this, right? Whether to kill Nasrallah or not kill Nasrallah, okay? What did Bibi decide to do? You have to kill him, okay? What did Galant, or whatever they call him, right? Galant decide? He said we have to inform America to see what they say. And you know exactly what America's going to say, right? I don't need that. Gallant was afraid to do it, okay? I don't need a defense minister that needs to take Valium. I don't need defense ministers like that, okay? I could take Valium because I'm not the defense minister, but he can't take Valium, right? So if he doesn't have the guts or the emuna to do it, then let him drop out. That's all, right? He said we have to make a committee. By the time you make a committee, the guy will be Mayor Vesrum Shana. They're going to make a committee to see if they should, this is the old rule. This is something that has to stop. You have to do the right thing, and you have to know that God is behind us doing the right thing. He's going to help us, right? But he's not going to help you if you don't help yourself. He's not going to help you if you turn a blind eye, if you don't do what needs to be done. How could he help you? You're not worthy of miracles. We're not worthy of open miracles. So there's only one way: ishtadlus and bitachon, and that's what I'm talking about here, right? If we have to put out, Iran, that's what God wants. And now we have to have complete emunah. What were we afraid of Nasrallah? There'd be who knows what would happen. They got scared to death after that.
Yeah, they killed the next guy coming.
Yeah, I mean, they got scared to death. There was no world war after that.
Nobody.
America thought there'll be a world war after that, right? This is a terrorist that killed hundreds of Americans. They're not embarrassed not to take him out? I don't get it. The whole Marines should have been up in arms against America, that America didn't take him out. They lost 500-600 people because of Nasrallah, and they were going to let him live?
I want to say something, by the way, if people don't know this, a lot of Arab countries were celebrating the death of Nasrallah. They were giving out the baklawa, they were celebrating, they were thanking. I saw a great video where this Arab is saying, thank you, Abu Yair, which is what they call Bibi, father of Yair. Thank you, and thanks to the Israeli army. This is Assyrian. It was really intense.
I want you
the
to know.
The Americans are sitting and crying over Nasrallah. The newspapers, the big newspapers were saying how he was a respected cleric. Honestly, seriously. And the Arabs in Syria who know exactly what he did to them, they're celebrating. So what planet are we on? They're so confused in America.
I just want to say that when we moved when Trump, the Meshuggah, moved, he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Bibi was scared to death. I remember it. They had to calm him down. He said, maybe we shouldn't do it. There's going to be a third intifada. Nothing happened. Okay? It's really a bizayin when Trump has more bitachon than Bibi Netanyahu. Okay? But I know you think he's crazy. Okay, that's good. That's good. I need everybody to think he's crazy. When the Arabs think someone's crazy, you don't mess with them, right? That's good. That's great. But he moved it, nothing happened. That means that a lot of times we're wrong. We think something's going to happen, and it doesn't. We killed Nasrallah, nothing happened. We will destroy the reactor in Iran. Nothing will happen except the fear of God will be put into those Muslims.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because we've been on the call now for an hour and 45 minutes. So I'm going to push back a little bit on this direction and say that many of us we may agree with you, Rabbi, we may not, but a lot of us don't really feel like we can have a lot of impact or influence on the decisions that, the leadership makes. So given that, given that we went through about 3 years of COVID where we thought the whole world was really going to come out new and improved and really not much changed, right? We didn't really come out of COVID in that wonderful euphoric place that we were hoping we would. Maybe some good things happened, some hard things happened. And given that we don't feel that we have a lot of impact or influence, especially here in Israel on the government, what would you recommend that we actually be focusing now on holding on to in this time? Actual practical things that are relevant and apply to us, whether we're here in Israel, whether we're in the UK, in the United States, that we can learn, grow, and hold on to from this time that we're in.
Again, I want to back up what Esther said. There's a lot of things that we can do to give the army strength, right? To give Israel strength, right? The American Jewry can get together, have demonstrations to give Israel strength, to tell them, we want you to finish the job. We to give the army strength and show hakaras hatov to the army. There's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of advertisements right now for tzedakah, for meals for the army. Now, there are lone soldiers who have no meals. I gave 180 shekel today to a organization online that is worrying about, I think it's like 5,000 lone soldiers. By the way, these lone soldiers are not just olim. Some of them are Haredi soldiers whose parents threw them out of the house because they joined the army, right? They're also lone soldiers, and they also need hot meals. The army has to feel that they're loved, right? The state of Israel has to feel that the American Jewry is behind it, and they have no doubts about it, right? That they're completely separating themselves from all those morons on campuses and all those senators and vice presidents, whoever they are, telling us really stupid things. Okay,
we're not going to get political,
right? So I'm not going to start anymore, right?
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
One of the things I've been telling people, and I hear this from a lot of small businesses and stuff. If you live in the States, just go on Amazon or other sites and look for Israeli products, Israeli art, Israeli wine, whatever stuff that you might want anyway, and buy it, because the economy here, that if it's not export oriented, it's taken quite a hit,
Right.
And tourism has taken a terrible hit as well.
Again, that's the way you could support Israel. You come, right? Because the people that are coming are not, unfortunately, the millions of Christians who really love Israel, but they're not coming because, and I have some students that got married without their parents. Their parents didn't come to the wedding because they were afraid to come. Right? So the way we could support Israel is if we come to Israel, like Stu said just now, that support it economically, support the army, right? That's the way we could really, because it's not just we need the help, but we really feel good when we know we have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, Jews behind us, right? Who are giving us that koach to keep going, whether it's financial koach or just the good word, just the appreciation, right? That's a tremendous thing. So we definitely have what to do when it comes to this, to helping Israel, helping the Israeli army, helping the Israeli government, right? We have what to do, and we should find ways that we can help. Some people can't help financially. I understand it. Right. I have a student that comes every few months. She volunteers down south. Right. And she helps the soldiers down south because people donate equipment and clothing, and she sets up the shop so they can come and get it. Right. She comes every few months for a month or two, and she volunteers and stays there. So it's not only a question of money. It's a question of finding your way that you could help the Jewish people. And by the way, in Aseret Shemei Tshuva, it's monumental to Aseret Shemei Tshuva to find how to help Jewish people. The Bali Musa talk about it, or Soloveitchik talks about it during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. To link yourself to the Jewish people is so important, not to be judged individually, but to be judged as part of Jewish people is a very important idea of Aseret Shemei Tshuva.
The Shunamit says that, B'toch Ami
Anochi Yoshavos.
I dwell among my people. It's very important.
Don't separate me out amongst my people. Show that you're part of the people. Figure out a way how you could help, help the people here in Israel. If you're not in Israel, if you're in Israel, you also need to do that as much as possible. When that in a certain way. I'll give you an example. In my neighborhood in Givat Ze'ev, every woman who has a husband in Miluim doesn't have to make Thursday night dinner. We bring all the women Thursday night dinner. They get 2 pizza pies, and if they have a large family, they get 3 pizza pies, right? They never have to cook dinner on Thursday night. They could ready cook Shabbos because dinner is made for them, right? And they go around the shul and they collect money, and if a guy can't give money, they say, okay, go pick up the pizzas, and you'll deliver the pizzas, right?
I want to say something. I'm still on the email list for Kamenetz in Veyako. And every week they make a collection of cooked food for Shabbos for 40 soldiers. And so it's a Haredi neighborhood, and they're doing their bit. They're very concerned. They're all cooking and baking and packing up to send it. Every week they say which area they're sending to which chayalim, and it's really.
And I want to tell you, there's a lot of Haredi neighbors like that. Don't think it's just Neve Yaakov. They're trying to do their part. They figure out how they can do their part. Their part, a lot of times, is in the Chesed part of the Jewish people, of the mitzvah of Chesed. They're very big on that in hospitals. They're very big in that in general. That's if they're not going to be going to the army, that's certainly something that they're trying to fulfill their part, and I think that should be recognized. I don't think that should be criticized. I think it should be recognized.
I want to say one more thing, which I didn't get a chance to say, but I really feel that we are living through some, I teach Tanakh, so I feel like we're living through a biblical event. Like there's something, uncanny about the whole situation. And I really hope and pray that this is, the Cheblei Mashiach, that we're living through the hard times, and that Bezrat Hashem, we will be zoche to see, to hear the shofar of Mashiach and soon, and that, the Kitab Bir Memshelet Zadon in Haaretz, I definitely think that we know who the Memshelet Zadon is, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take away the evil governments from the land and, bring us the Geula. I really feel if you follow the Tanakh, the Parashat of Torah, it's unbelievable. I mean, just on Shabbos Shuvah, beyond all the amazing things about Shuvah that it says there, it says, I will distance the northerner from you. I look at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, the northerner. Who's that? Hezbollah, right? God is distancing them from us. Thank you, Hashem. And I really feel like we are really living through, some kind of, biblical event where we're really in that, the forward march of Jewish history. We are living it.
And don't forget to follow the soldiers who have this achdus, right? Am echad b'lev echad, right? That's very important, extremely important. If we're going to bring Mashiach, we have to do it with not judging other Jews, because we see that other Jews, religious or secular, they're not exactly like us, but they're doing their best to help Klal Yisrael. And that's extremely important for us to bear in mind, and to bear the Hakara Sato for that, and certainly not to judge other people. The Nova Festival, I'm not going to say that that's a festival that I would have gone to on Simchas Torah, but I'm not sitting and judging those kids, right? I always say to myself, what have I done wrong to make Jewish kids go to the Nova Festival? What could I have given them so they would have been dancing in shul and not in the Nova Festival? I take the responsibility. I don't put it on them, right? That's an extremely important part. What are we doing as religious Jews showing these kids who went to the Nova Festival that they should be in shul dancing on Simchas Torah, not in the Nova Festival? Have we done enough for that? And that's a question that we should be asking ourselves, because I don't think I've done enough to make myself a model for those kids.
That it's a very famous comment of Rabbi Salanter, and he said that when the Jews in Lithuania talk Lashon Hara, the Jews in Paris are Machal Shabbos. Basically, what he's saying is that the religious community has to strengthen themselves in things like Lashon Hara, and things that they take for granted, because the ripple effect of when the frum community is not as strong and as correct as they should be, it means that the people in Paris, he was talking about the secular communities, they're not inspired by the religious people. And when they're not inspired, then they go further away. So that is what Rabbi Solange was saying, is ultimately the responsibility of the people who know better to better themselves, so that we can, he famously said, I wanted to fix the whole world and I couldn't do it. And then I wanted to fix my city and I couldn't do it. And I finally realized I have to fix myself first. So it all begins with avodah atzmi.
I want to leave you with a chilling story that I heard from Rabbi Karlinsky.
Right.
Okay, a chilling story. Okay, it happened in one of the frum areas, Haredi areas. There was a kid who was not already observant, but he loved dancing on Simchas Torah. Okay, so it was in an area that was a Haredi area that he used to come every year with his father. He was a teenager to shul to dance on Simchas Torah. That's what he connected with, the music, the singing, the dancing on Simchas Torah. One Simchas Torah, the one right before the Nova Festival, the year before, he went to shul and he was dancing in a circle. People could see that he wasn't a frum kid, and one of the parents said to his child, "Don't hold his hand." The next year, he decided to go to the Nova Festival and not go to shul on Simchas Torah, and he was killed. This is what I heard from Rabbi Karlinsky. Okay, it's us that we have to stop judging these kids, because if they're not frum, it means because we're not the proper models. Okay, if we would be the proper model, they would be frum. So let's stop pointing fingers, except to ourselves. I wish everybody a Gemar Chasima Tova, and you should have a meaningful and easy fast, or a meaningful fast. Okay, easy is great if you have that too, but a meaningful fast.
You can't have a meaningful fast if you're sick.
Right, that's true.
First have an easy fast, and then you can have a meaningful fast.
Meaningful fast, and we should really sit and think. We're sitting in shul, and we should really sit and think how we, as Klal Yisrael, could be better and be a better model for all the secular people in Klal Yisrael, and show them the truth. Because once you see the truth, it's hard to deny. That's what I think we have to sit and work on.
I'll quote Bibi, Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem.
I think in Arutz Abasrei, they made a chart of how many times he said Bezrat Hashem, and how that is like increased exponentially. He never used to say that, but once we saw him putting on tefillin, we knew that there's something going on there.
We always realize in Judaism there's no atheists in the foxholes, and we are in the foxholes. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Rabbi, if it makes you feel better about your own, I just want you to quote my 12-year-old son, Shuki, who told me yesterday that you're still his favorite rabbi. So you're doing something right. And we really appreciate both of you, and we appreciate your time. I appreciate seeing all of you sticking around here for 2 hours with us. It's pretty big, amazing testament to the Shurins and their insights. There were questions that I didn't get a chance to ask. So if anybody still feels strongly that their questions weren't answered, please don't hesitate to write to me or write to the Shurins, and we'll be happy to spend time on it.
I'll be happy to try to answer them. I'm not with all the answers.
Okay, a Gemar Chasima Tova to everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye.
Have a blessed year, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.
It's going to be better than last year, which is not actually saying so much. Bezrat Hashem.
And it should be a tremendous chus for Stu's grandmother.
Amen. Should have an aliyah. All right, goodbye, guys.